Coming up in our newscast tonight, the government's minimum wage commission will go through a revamp and be divided into two sub-bodies to better help narrow the gap between employers and workers over the rapid wage hike. President Moon Jae-in meets with leaders of some 200 small and mid-sized firms. He promises greater government support and asks the group's help in creating a people-centered economy. U.S. President Donald Trump expressed his optimism regarding another summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Trump claims to be indirectly communicating with Kim and says they are even discussing possible venues for the big event. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Choi. The South Korean government introduced a new minimum wage setting system. It's looked to help improve fairness so that all related parties in the labor market can accommodate the changes, starting with the hike set for 2020. Kim Ji-yeon has our top story.
The Ministry of Employment and Labor announced that the Minimum Wage Commission designated to determine wage increases is to be divided into two sub-bodies. A committee of 9 experts will set the range for the new minimum wage rates. Among the 15 candidates recommended for the panel, 5 each are supported by labor management and government. A separate committee made up of representatives of companies' non-regular workers, public interest commissioners, and small businesses will make the final decision. Its members will be reduced to 15 or 21 members in total. The new system reflects the recommendations made by the committee's task force of 18 experts, which has been active for 4 months leading up to December. It has also taken into account global standards set by the International Labour Organization.
The new system will be more reasonable in that the rates will be determined using experts' opinion, which are based on objective figures. The decision-making process will be more rational than the previous process, which was a tug-of-war between labor and management.
Up until now, there were a total of 27 members, and 9 of them were public interest commissioners nominated by the labor minister and appointed by the president. However, there was criticism that these commissioners, who usually had the casting vote in determining the wage rate, follow the government's views on the minimum wage increases. In the new system, the government won't have as much leverage to nominate or recommend public interest commissioners. For 10 days starting January 21st, the government will gather public opinion on the new system through online channels, and experts will conduct debates on reforming the new minimum wage setting system. Adjusting the pace of the minimum wage hikes has been cited in business circles, particularly among small and medium-sized companies and the services sector, as the main reason why employers have been reluctant to hire more people. In line with its people-centered growth policies that entail raising incomes, the Moon Jae-in administration hiked this year's minimum wage by 10.9% from the previous year to $7.50, following a drastic 16.4% hike from 2017. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in met with leaders of small and mid-sized firms along with venture business owners today. During their talks, the South Korean leader emphasized job creation is the most pressing issue the country faces and called on the participants to do their part in helping to revitalize the economy. Shin Se-min has the highlights from that session.
President Moon Jae-in is focused this year on revitalizing the country's economy, which has been stuck in a rut of slow growth. Speaking Monday to 200 leaders of small and mid-sized businesses, the president promised his support, calling SMEs the driving force of the administration's people-centered economy.
가장 시급한 현안인 일자리도 전체 고용의 80% 이상을 차지하는 중소기업의 고용이 늘어야 해결될 수 있습니다.
President Moon guaranteed total government backing so that the business leaders can feel the changes themselves. He promised spending $17.8 billion this year to fund R&D for SMEs and venture firms. President Moon said 4,000 additional smart factories will also be made this year, which will go toward the goal of 30,000 smart factories by 2020, and called on SMEs to do their part to create more investment opportunities. The president also said that adding innovative startups and SMEs little by little will eventually help breathe life into the economy and make it more resilient. The president's promises are in line with his New Year pledge to improve the country's economy, which he has emphasized multiple times. He had a New Year's event for the first time at the Korea Federation for SMEs, speaking to companies both big and small in the hope of getting them to make more investments. The president is scheduled to attend a similar meeting sometime next week with the country's leading conglomerates and mid-sized firms, as well as a separate meeting soon with small businesses and the self-employed. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Rising youth unemployment and layoffs due to increases in Korea's minimum wage have contributed to a sharp spike in payouts from the country's unemployment insurance fund, which assists individuals who have lost their jobs. Data released by the Ministry of Employment and Labor shows nearly $5.8 billion was paid out in 2018. That is up 28.5% from the previous year. The number of unemployment insurance recipients also rose by nearly 4% to a combined 13.4 million in December, most of them from the construction sector. Since its launch, the Moon Jae-in administration has made creating jobs one of the top priorities. But while other age groups experience increased job opportunities, the employment rate for people in their 20s is still very low. Choi Si-young sheds light on what's causing this trend.
The country's Trade Research Institute said Sunday that the youth employment rate hasn't recovered to above the level it was in the 2009 financial crisis. But other age groups, particularly the 50s and 60s, have seen increases in employment rates. The institute said the lack of jobs and the increased number of people in their 20s are behind the low youth employment rate. The employment rate is calculated by dividing the number of people employed from the working population. But the number of people in their 20s has risen due to the sons and daughters of baby boomers reaching that age. The working population for the 20s last year was about 7 million, up nearly 300,000 from 2013. The number of people in their 20s employed in the manufacturing sector showed a fall of roughly 30,000 between 2015 and 2018. But the employment rate for people in their 50s displayed a dramatic increase in the manufacturing, construction, and service industries in the same period. The rate for people in their 60s also saw a hike in the manufacturing and construction industries, thanks to improving health conditions. The institute warns the government should roll out measures for the unemployed people in their 20s because their unemployment, if prolonged, will drag down the country's economic growth and increase welfare expenses. The institute recommends restoring the manufacturing industry's competitiveness while fostering high-value added service sectors. Choi Si-young, Arirang News.
Reportedly, negotiations are underway between North Korea and the U.S. to decide on where to hold their second summit. That's according to President Donald Trump. The commander-in-chief claims to have been indirectly communicating with the regime's leader, but did not elaborate on when the meeting could happen. Kim Yo-sun shares with us his remarks.
President Trump has been speaking optimistically about a second summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Speaking to reporters outside the White House on Sunday, he said the venue is already being discussed.
We're negotiating a location. It will be announced probably not in the not too distant future. They have made it very clear. In fact, they've actually said to the media that they would like to meet. And they do want to meet, and we want to meet, and we'll see what happens.
He also revealed that he has spoken indirectly with the North Korean leader, adding that the situation with Pyongyang is much better now compared to when he first took office. President Trump, however, added that sanctions against the regime remain in effect. As for the location of a second summit, CNN reported last week that the Trump administration is reviewing a number of places. Citing diplomatic sources, the report said Vietnam, Hawaii, and even the demilitarized zone that separates the two Koreas have been mentioned as possible summit venues. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
Now that Washington is being proactive, it seems, in trying to create the conditions for a second summit with Pyongyang, curiosity peaks as to where the hotly anticipated event could take place. Woo Jung-hee explores the possible venues.
Anticipation is growing towards a possible second summit between North Korea and the U.S. In his New Year's address, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said he's willing to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump at any time, and Trump responded that he too is looking forward to the meeting. A couple of days later, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo added to this, saying he's sure Kim and Trump will meet in the next short period of time. But up until now, negotiations between North Korea and the U.S. have not been able to move forward. The two sides couldn't even arrange high-level talks since they were called off in November. The two had a large gap between their demands, Pyongyang seeking sanctions relief and Washington calling for tangible denuclearization steps. Amid such deadlock, the U.S. is setting the atmosphere for a second summit, and watchers believe it's trying to bring Pyongyang to the negotiation table with the next summit as an incentive.
The U.S. knows that North Korea wants summit talks, so it aims to draw North Korea out to have high-level talks using the summit talks, saying they can be held in the near future. Washington is urging Pyongyang to return to the talks.
Now that North Korea and the U.S. are negotiating on their next summit venue, eyes fall on where that'll be. Many say it's highly likely to be an Asian country, namely Vietnam, Indonesia, or Mongolia. All three have expressed they're willing to provide the venue, and they also have diplomatic relations with both North Korea and the U.S. Plus, Vietnam and Indonesia both lie within North Korea's flight range, while Mongolia is close enough to the north that Kim Jong-un may even travel over land. And the fact that North Korea has been studying the Vietnam model of economic development is also a factor. The demilitarized zone lying on the border between the two Koreas, as well as European countries such as Sweden and Switzerland, were once deemed possible candidates as well. But they're now seen as less likely due to high geographical symbolization and low accessibility, respectively. Woo Jung-hee, Arirang News.
The UN Special Rapporteur on North Korean human rights is visiting Seoul to discuss what is being done and what should be done with Pyongyang in terms of human rights. Today, Tomas Oeya Quintana met with the nation's vice ministers of unification and foreign affairs. He expressed support for South Korea's efforts to build peace and prosperity on the peninsula and stressed that cooperation with the international community should be expanded to make progress on human rights in the regime. The officials explained Seoul will continue working to build a lasting peace and to improve inter-Korean relations, ultimately with the goal of solving humanitarian issues and improving human rights. South Korea and Japan agree on the need for talks to resolve their recent radar incident. A military source told Arirang News this afternoon that the two countries saw eye to eye on the need to hold consultations and are currently engaged in discussions to arrange working-level talks. The source added the nation's defense ministry plans to upload its video response to Tokyo's claims with subtitles in 6 languages, including Japanese, Chinese, French, and Russian. The clip, already released in Korean and English, shows Seoul's position that its Navy did not have any intention to threaten the Japanese patrol aircraft and did not use STIR fire control radar on it. In the domestic political arena, rival parties remain divided over how to change the country's electoral system. On Monday, the chairs of the 5 main parties discussed a proposal that would increase the number of parliamentary seats. It was drawn up by an advisory panel of the National Assembly's Special Committee on Political Reform. It was welcomed by the minor blocs, who want a system where votes for parties, not just candidates, are tied to the number of parliamentary seats they get. That could be done either by reducing the number of single-member districts or by increasing the number of lawmakers elected by proportional representation. But the 2 biggest parties are against adding more seats. Currently, in the 300-member parliament, seats go to the candidates who get the most votes in each of 253 constituencies, while the remaining 47 seats are based on nationwide votes by party preference. Normally, when you hear Samsung and Apple's name together, it's about bitter rivalry. Well, not this time. The Korean tech titan is said to be the first TV brand to provide iTunes and AirPlay 2 service to its 2019 Smart TV users. Hong Yu zooms in on this team-up.
For the first time ever, Apple's iTunes will be accessible on another brand's devices, and that brand is Apple's global rival, Samsung. On Sunday, the two tech giants announced a partnership in which Apple is allowing people to make iTunes purchases and view them on Samsung products with no restrictions. Starting this spring, when Apple launches its iTunes Movies and TV Shows application, Samsung's 2019 Smart TV users will have access to thousands of movies and TV episodes, including a large selection of 4K HDR movies. And users can search for content on iTunes through Samsung's search engine New Bixby, making searches easy for users. Samsung's 2019 Smart TVs will also allow the streaming of videos, music, and photos through Apple's AirPlay 2. According to one tech analyst, the move will benefit both Apple and Samsung.
More people are watching videos through their televisions nowadays, and Samsung is the #1 seller in the global TV market. So it's a win-win for both of them, as Apple gets to provide its content through the television that sells most around the world. And for Samsung, providing iTunes and AirPlay 2 services means being able to provide more content only to its customers.
Eddie Q, Senior Vice President of Internet Software and Services at Apple, said they look forward to bringing the iTunes and AirPlay 2 experience to even more customers around the world through Samsung Smart TVs. So iPhone, iPad, and Mac users have yet another way to enjoy all their favorite content on the biggest screen in their home. Hong Yu, Arirang News.
The world's biggest tech exhibition, CES, or the Consumer Electronics Show, kicks off in Las Vegas on Tuesday local time. Around 4,500 companies from tech giants to startups and 180,000 people from 150 countries are expected to attend. The Internet of Things, AI, robots, autonomous cars, and 5G will be the focal point at this year's show, which runs through Friday. Korean tech titans Samsung and LG Electronics will be releasing their new smart home appliances and showcase their 8K televisions. Hyundai Motors is also expected to unveil its new concept car called the Walking Car, an EV which uses robotics technology to tackle challenging terrain. Sales of eco-friendly cars reached record high levels here in the nation last year, topping 120,000 units. According to data compiled by Seoul's carmakers and the Korea Automobile Importers and Distributors Association, sales soared 26.6% on year. Sales of electric vehicles jumped more than twofold compared to 2017, with over 30,000 units snapped up. Lotte Duty Free announced one of its stores achieved a world record in sales by a single store for a single year. The South Korean duty-free chain said on Sunday its store in Myeongdong, one of Seoul's main shopping districts, saw sales worth more than $3.5 billion in the year 2018. That's more than $9.9 million a day. The key contributors, according to Lotte, a surge in Chinese buying agents who bought Korean products to resell those items in their country. The company as a whole also posted record high domestic sales for a Korean duty-free company at more than $6.7 billion. South Korean men's football team has not won the Asian Cup in almost 6 decades, but this year's Taeguk Warriors are looking sharper than ever under the leadership of an impressive new head coach. They'll be looking to clinch that continental title over at the UAE. First, the squad face the Philippines. Lee Seung-jae has more on their journey ahead.
The last time South Korea won the Asian Cup was all the way back in 1960, when South Korea hosted a 4-team tournament and won all 3 matches for their second Asian Cup title. Since then, South Korea has fallen short every time, but they're aiming to grab the elusive title in the UAE this year. The squad began their journey against the Philippines on Monday night in a Group C match at the Al Maktoum Stadium in Dubai. The game kicks off at 10:30 p.m. Korea time. South Korea are the favorites to top Group C, with the other teams being China and Kyrgyzstan. The Taeguk Warriors are ranked 53rd in the latest FIFA rankings, 4th highest among AFC members. Despite South Korea being one of the favorites to raise the trophy, it won't be easy, as the competition is bigger than ever,
expanding from a 16-team to 24-team format this year. And for South Korea's Portuguese head coach Paulo Bento, the tournament is his first big challenge since taking the reins in August. Bento will be without star forward Son Heung-min for the first match, as the Tottenham Hotspur striker is set to join up with the squad after January 13th. Despite Son's absence against the Philippines, South Korea will have enough firepower up front, as Hwang Hee-jo, the 2018 KFA Player of the Year and the top scorer at last year's Asian Games, will be the main striker. The late addition of up-and-coming star Lee Seung-woo should also boost South Korea's chances of grabbing their third Asian Cup title. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
A unique art technique has been added to the nation's list of intangible cultural assets. The Cultural Heritage Administration designated Nakhwajeong as Intangible Cultural Heritage number 136 on Monday. The technique involves creating pictures using searing hot iron on materials such as paper, wood, and leather. Originated in Jeollabuk-do province at around the start of the 19th century, Nakhwajeong requires skilled craftsmanship to use the iron tools to create light and dark shades. The Heritage Administration named craftmaster Kim Young-jo as the holder of the technique. 2018 was a busy year of peace building for Seoul and Pyongyang. To help take a look back at the recent series of inter-Korean summits, as well as all the meetings that came before them, a special exhibition is on at Sejong City. Park Hee-jun shows us what to expect from the road to peace.
You may be familiar with this bench. It's where South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had a private chat during their inter-Korean summit at the border village of Panmunjom last year. But where I am is nowhere near the border with North Korea. In fact, it's at a special exhibition in Sejong City.
The Presidential Archives is hosting a special exhibition that walks visitors through all the past inter-Korean summits. Titled The Road to Peace, the exhibition displays around 150 different records, photos, and videos that document the historic meetings. They include a preparation plan for the 2000 Inter-Korean Summit and a summary of the results of the first sit-down session of the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit, all revealed for the very first time. Also on display are containers that carried soil from Paektusan Mountain and water from the Taedonggang River for when the leaders planted the ceremonial tree during their summit last year.
It's great that we can see the gifts and souvenirs that weren't shown on television. I think those who come to this exhibition will get a lasting impression of the inter-Korean summits.
It's also an opportunity for visitors to realize how far the two Koreas have come in their efforts to build peace on the Korean peninsula. And many visitors have hopes that one day, South and North Korea will become one.
I hope all relations between neighboring countries will head to the right direction this year. And as a Korean, I hope the two Koreas will reunite soon and be able to advance together.
Visitors can enjoy the exhibition for free. It will run until June this year. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News, Sejong.
Time to turn to Michelle Bach for the updates you need. Michelle, bad air quality followed by a cold snap. It's becoming almost routine.
Yes, Daniel, and what's more concerning is that smog has further propelled ultrafine dust levels upwards in most parts of the country. However, the accumulated dust in the atmosphere is expected to dissipate overnight, starting from the northern provinces. Now, if you are in the southern regions, poor air quality will continue until tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be sunny in Seoul tomorrow, while the southern regions are overcast with temperatures 1 to 3 degrees Celsius lower than today. Now, it's going to be windy as well, so I advise you to dress warmer than today. And meanwhile, Tokyo will have mild conditions. And Seoul wakes up to minus 5 degrees Celsius tomorrow morning, and Chuncheon is a lot colder at minus 10 degrees Celsius, while some of the southern regions will have positive readings. And during the day, Seoul rises up to 0 degrees. Busan and Jeju both reaches up to 8 degrees. By Wednesday, there's going to be a sudden cold snap. Now, Seoul plunging down to minus 10 degrees Celsius in the morning. Now, the sudden cold wave is expected to short, with the mercury bouncing back the next day. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all we have for you on tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. Wherever you may be tuning in from, thank you for staying with us.